So it just appears as though that I am just wrapping up a whole lot of stuff this weekend. I'm wrapping up a multi-day span of me covering all sorts of stuff, from wrestling to finishing up my Mission Impossible series to now finishing this series off. So let's talk about what just happened in this last episode. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Daniel Strunk from QuickTime Reactions, and let us talk about the last episode of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 7, which is titled Convergence. With Jesse having saved Dina and Ellie at the in the previous, not the previous episode, but the episode before last, Jesse and Tommy, who was also with them in Seattle, they are going to try and take Dina and Ellie back home to Jackson. But they realize that they are in the middle of a dogfight between the Seraphites and the WLF. So they have to navigate all throughout this tricky war zone littered with landmines. Not literal landmines, but metaphorical ones. As Ellie also tries and seek her revenge against Abby. Which one will be accomplished first? So, like I said, this is the last one of Season 2. I knew that they were already confirmed for Season 3 before the finale had even aired, and while I was out watching wrestling last night, I had seen a couple of the reactions posted to YouTube, and I had noticed that Abby had a presence in a couple of thumbnails, so I'm like, okay, Abby's going to be involved in this final episode somehow. It did not. It was like towards the end of the episode, I was like, it's not appearing that way. And then when stuff happens, I'm like, oh, that's how. So Jesse and Ellie are going out after Dina was shot with a bolt, and Jesse's trying to tend to her. I love the little fact of Jesse says, take the whiskey, take the alcohol, it'll numb the pain. And Dina's like, no, I can't have that. And I love that in a later conversation with Ellie, he says, I tended to her, and, she had a bolt in her leg, and I offered her alcohol. The person who doesn't refuse a drink in her life. And she says no. And Ellie's like, weird. And Jesse's like, yeah, that is a little weird. Maybe that, she's pregnant. And Ellie just goes, oh, shit. And Ellie goes like, oh, wait, you were guessing? And I love that. I love that reveal in the episode. I also love the scene in the episode where WLF soldiers are hunting down a stray Seraphite, and basically they strip him of his clothes and drag him away to be tortured, and Ellie wants to save that kid, and Jesse does not, and we get a beautiful scene, I believe in the upper levels of a bookstore, where Jesse's like, look, this is not our fight, it's their fight. And I have to protect not only myself, but my community as a whole. And Ellie's like, your community? Well, let me tell you about what happened with my community. He got beaten to death in front of me. And I love that interaction. It's like, yeah, we understand your rationale behind it, because Joel was the only person that Ellie had in her life, and that was taken away from her, and she justifiably wants revenge. but sometimes revenge can come at a very hefty cost, and sometimes people aren't willing to pay that bill. But Jesse and Ellie split up because Ellie is going to go after Abby at all cost. She takes a boat across the ocean, but she gets capsized and she ends up on an island that is full of seraphites. And they're going to, string her up and, rip out her entrails. And even the kid who spotted her was like, she's got to go, huh? And even when, because I love the flip of the coin where it's like she sympathized with them earlier on, and now we get to see their really dark side and how like she should not have trusted them. But Ellie is able to escape because Isaac and his crew, who were moving troops to that island, end up destroying that village. We see that happen in the background. Ellie is able to make it to the aquarium based off of the clues that Nora gave her, wheel and whale. She's able to make it to the aquarium and she finds Owen and Mel trying to reconvene with Abby. We have a standoff between them and Ellie, and Owen grabs his gun to try and be a bit of a quick draw, but Ellie is the quicker draw, fires off a shot, shoots Owen right through the neck, and Mel sees the, I don't want to, stopping point for the bullet in the back of a metal cabinet, and we see that she got grazed on the neck, and that is especially bad because she is pregnant. So Mel is trying to give Ellie these instructions of how to cut the baby out, and Ellie doesn't know what to do, and so not only does Mel die, but her innocent child also dies as well. Tommy and Jesse are able to find Ellie and take her back to the theater, and they're trying to, get together a plan of action going forward to try and get out of Seattle and back to Jackson in a safe way. And I love the little beat that Ellie and Jesse have, where it's like, did you think about just leaving me behind? And it was like, Jesse was like, yeah, but I have thought about it, and if something were to happen to me, you would burn the whole forest down to try and save me. And that was a nice little sweet moment, but it is punctuated by Abby showing up at the theater, having Tommy at gunpoint, and when Jesse and Ellie try to see what's going on, Jesse immediately gets shot and is killed. Abby demands Ellie to emerge or else Tommy is going to get killed, and Ellie goes into a big spiel about, hey, I was the person that killed your friends, and I completely understand what you did to Joel. And Abby was like, I let you live, and that was a big waste. And she immediately points the gun at Ellie, and it fades to black when the shot's fired. But then we cut back to Abby waking up and Manny telling her that she needs to be up in 5. And we see Abby walk around in a couple of halls and out to a stadium where the big WLF camp is set up. And a device that they had been using a few times in the episode was Seattle, day 1, day 2, and in this episode, day 3. Here, with Abby to finish off the season, Seattle, day 1. And my assumption is we are going to follow Abby's point of view for season 3 for those 3 days, in which, you know, Ellie and Dina arrived to Seattle, leading up to their confrontation in the theater. This was a really captivating and a really interesting way to end off the season. I know it's not going to be, the clean cut finale that everyone expects, but, I also love really good cliffhangers, and this to me is a really good cliffhanger because it's going to draw people in to wanting to see what on earth is going to happen in season 3. Have to give major props and shout outs to Neil Druckmann, Craig Mazin, and Haley Gross, who wrote this episode, much like they did for the last episode, and Nina Lopez Corrado, who directed this episode. They all did an amazing job of not only making this episode, but just like the whole time of just, doing amazing structuring. And I'm talking about like Druckmann, Mazin, and Gross do an amazing job of structuring this season really, really well and making it flow differently than what it did in the game, but also still making sense as kind of like a companion piece to the game, even though, if I'm, being Scout's honor truth here, I've not played the game, so I don't know. I would say, like, Season 2, to me, is much better than Season 1, in my humble opinion. And here's the reason I say why. In the after show stuff that I watch at the end of each episode, Mazin said something really poignant. It's like, in Hollywood, we always tell, the good guy, bad guy stories. Well, in Last of Us, we tell people stories. And I love that adage that he says, because every single person has a different story. One person can be a hero and the other person can be a villain, but that dynamic can be flipped in the other person's mind. Every single story is written by their own author. Like, my story is completely different to your guys' story, and it can be different to another person's story that's like, halfway around the world. We all have different stories. We're all different heroes and different villains alike. And I find that to be a very interesting tack that this show has really stuck to. Because we have seen Ellie as a hero and a villain, and we have seen Abby mostly as a villain, but I'm assuming in Season 3 we are going to see her as a hero. So, I know it's a tough pill for people to swallow, but that's just how the real world operates. It's not clean cut, white hats and black hats. There are gray hats. There are shades of gray in the world. And, I know people want that in their media, but I appreciate, Last of Us taking this tack of, saying everyone's got a bit of shade of gray to them. And I cannot wait to see what they do with that in Season 3. But, in the meantime, guys, be safe out there. And remember, if you are seeking vengeance against somebody, probably don't, because you never know. That vengeance could come around and bite you tenfold. And I will see you guys next time.